That was 10 seconds for the noise removal. Anyways, I might even just not even do that. Policy as of now is I'm not fucking around with this anymore. I'm doing this all in one take. Where did I even start the writing? Rescrypted is ostensibly done now, and there's a lot about it that I respect, and some parts that I've come to respect even more, as I've learned more about how this awful nebulous concept of the game works, but also some parts that I'd still rather change if I had the option. Let us begin with the beasts. You know, blood goper. People tend to associate blood with aggro, which it certainly can be aggressive, but I think they overestimate just how powerful it really is without much chicanery. It definitely still has burst power, and sacrifices can be powerful pivots against removal, but it still eats a lot of cards. Ah, yes, the humble squirrel. For years, many have been determined to ensure nothing can directly outclass this pinnacle of pathetic smallness. In that vein, it often had the gimmick, if it could be so called, of being the only side deck you could actually draw blood from. You've not done that here. It's on the same playing field as all the other side decks, and has to be fairly evaluated for its real stats. Free, 0 power, 1 health. That 1 health isn't nothing, and scroll blocking can very much be real, with energy being in a usable state of support. It also has the Vermin tribe, and I've not experimented much with tribe gimmicks. I'll get back to this when I get to Starweaver. Ostensibly even less useful than regular squirrels, aqua squirrels definitely exist here. There have been various strategies invented which place aqua squirrels in a position where their waterborne self-defense actually does become relevant for the sake of preserving your sacrifice material across a turn, but with Squirrel Ball being as fragile as it is here, I don't think these strategies really have a place in Rescrypted. Where aqua squirrels do have a place, however, is in pointlessly nerfing your own options to flex on other players, even if only jokingly and to a slight degree, as aggressive flood strategies typically don't have any need to stall their leaf blockers on the field. Yeah. This is a free Bullfrog, a turn later. Bullfrogs themselves aren't all that great. It doubles as main deck sack fodder, which is generally a bad thing to have, since you can just draw squirrels for that. If Bullfrogs themselves were better, I could see this being a viable means of deck thinning, but with the way evolution mechanics are stated to work, there's simply too much risk in drawing the main deck Bullfrog. And I know I just said main deck squirrels are bad, which they are, but Rabbit has the excuse of sigil support. Not from Warren, of course, but from Party Magician. The risk of having your actual main deck draw land on it still exists, of course, but it's mitigated by running multiple copies of already aggressive high-tempo cards like, Party Magician. This is a beast version of an ankle grabber. It already had almost no viable purpose, but now that those exist, it has even less of one. I do note that it technically doesn't have absolute 0 purpose, but with the 2-tempo rule, but it's not much. Bees are an objective upgrade to Insectodrones, excluding 2-tempo, and yet they serve more to highlight how bad Insectodrones actually are. One is pathetic stat line for something you have to actually draw out of your deck, particularly if it doesn't do anything else. It's here for beehives, which are probably also still kind of bad. 1 health worker ant. What has this world come to? Seriously though, ants can only ever be fun as a gimmick in a deck builder, which Rescrypted by definition cannot be, so the only feasible options were to ban or remove them outright, or make them unviable. I will not shed a tear for them. 1/1 Wolf Cub is a hard check to see whether the opponent has skeletons or monks. Like the other fledglings, its dependence on keeping certain cards in your deck makes it even worse than it would be normally. I might even end up just rescinding what I said about evolution as deck thinning, because the delay of an entire turn raises questions like, oh, I don't know, what are you even trying to do? Oh, look, 3 health. I've written a lot about Warren already. It's the same net blood value as Squirrel, though it technically does net you an extra bone and some pivot power, in case your wolf was about to hit a dead man's chest or something, but don't mistake that for real blood support. For as terrifying as I remember this card being in other versions, I haven't used it much. The people forgotten how to play Bloodfall. Fuck you. As I mentioned when I was talking about squirrels proper, 1 health is very, very fragile for as much investment as this thing begets. I want to believe there's some bizarre world where Sparrow is viable. It might exist if people get too comfortable trying to rely on combat perish effects, but there frankly aren't many good ones outside of the classic Explode Bod and the new Dead Man's Chest. Now this is a certified hood classic. Now with actual token creation, see how cards are better when they don't force you to introduce garbage into your deck? What's bad is bad. Rip Bozo didn't even teach us how the sigil worked because we got Grimora first. I've had several arguments about whether Kingfisher is a good card. I have not been in as many arguments about whether River Otter is a good card, probably because it can be blocked by any reasonable stat wall and made into even more of a weakness. 1 powers really need justification to keep their field space. I've always had an irrational fear of this card. Fledglings are probably still too bad in general for this to be a super reliable strategy, but Ravens are pretty good, I want to believe. Bones are bad in Rescrypted. Combo-dependent 1-blood 1-1 probably doesn't help much. Sad. I like this guy. Pondering a tech deck that runs squirrels just to have access to the really annoying blood cards like Mole and Skunk. I feel like this would exist by now if it were doable. Which it doesn't. I have no significant thoughts about this card except this really dumb gimmick deck Ian made once in Augmented and also the infinite damage exploit, but that requires opponent cooperation, so it's basically just silly trivia. 1 blood, 3 health removal kind of is decent. Hello, buff conduit fuel, or 2 damage turn 1, whatever. Now here's the card that starts arguments. Is 2 whole CA for a persistent 1 damage a turn -1 board space really worth it? Is it viable if you have a whole bunch of them? I tried to do something like this with Boo Hags once, but those are expensive. Maybe this is why we can't have nice things in the vein of standalone stat buffs on hard-to-remove cards. Ah yes, better stout. I can picture some odd strategy where having a guaranteed blood card in hand ensures you're able to pull off some combo or pivot, but committing to the entire Beast Temple over that sounds expensive. Well, I mean, assuming you're not already there for Magpie or Aura. At least you get Turkey Vulture. Bro fell off, we got Sprite Thief. Why does this cost blood? Rip Ants. It's basically the same as Wolf Cub, but it's slightly more mid-game oriented, I guess. I don't know. I can see this being really, really funny against a combo-heavy Mox deck exactly one time, and then it still loses. Honestly, maybe that's worth it. Fuck Mox! Anyway, this is dog water unless you've got a red heart or something. Remember before when I said that Tadpole isn't worth it because bullfrogs are bad? Yeah. These last few reviews have been pretty short, huh? Oh, Black Goat, my beautiful game-breaking bastard daughter. I just think this is a really funny card to have exist because it's really not that big of a deal in Act 1 of the video game. 3 Bloods are a rare niche strategy if you're not starting with the Black Goat deck in Casey's mod. And the Black Goat in a bottle usually just gets you out of a bind by playing a 2 Blood. This is not to say, of course, that aggro is not incentivized by Act 1's format. Rather, it is simply a more dominant strategy to attach as much power as you can to a 1 Blood, as costs are one of the few properties of cards that cannot be modified. However, obviously, talk of modifying cards becomes irrelevant once we enter a constructed deck environment. 3 Blood aggro is back on the table, and this silly little goat is the #1 enabler. Most 3 Bloods are balanced around you having to either partially gather... No, I'm not editing this. Most 3 Bloods are balanced around you either having to patiently gather a handful of squirrels or wipe nearly your entire field. Both of these avenues are doable, but leave some sort of weakness. So what if, instead of that, there was a card that gave you that 3 turns of blood value instantly, and it didn't require 3 separate spaces to be shuffled out, and it had the cost that you can just keep infinitely using per turn, so you don't even have to worry about tempo limitations? We still love you, Meatbot. There's a reason this thing always gets restricted, lest anyone forget. Oh yeah, holy shit, 04 Beehive, and you can still sack it. Probably still bad. One of many cards with an insane combat perish effect and nothing else going for it. This is why Airborns are viable. 2 blood, 3/2. Gold standard of the blood curve. Well, for people who want to move things around, I guess. It's hard to say exactly how many their applications there are for this, considering it only moves after the attack sequence, but it's something. This is another card that I used to think was terrifying, but honestly it's kind of expensive for the real value you get out of it. It's probably just a new trap for do you know what the word removal means? Remember kids, a 1 power with a shit ton of health is still a 1 power. This is a combo dependent 5/2. Scary when it works. Probably less consistent than Mox gimmicks. I like Ravens. 2 power is enough to be a real threat, and 3 health is enough to not fall apart instantly. Airborne means it's immune to combat traps. Do we have a term for those yet? I'm coining combat traps. I basically already did, but I wrote this a while ago. You know how it is in production. Anyway, this is a blood card that gets you bones, and as we've touched on, they have a very poor return on investment. I really hope there are some diehard Pronghorn fans out there somewhere, because I am sure not one of them. It's more survivable, but less accessible than Mantis. Does it have a specific purpose that it excels at? Ophelia seems to think they're anti-Mox, but with hitting all 4 board lanes 2 at a time per turn. Who knows? Jonathan! I can just run DMC, it's way cheaper. Blood is for going fast. If my plays depend on the opponent falling into my combat traps, I am probably not going very fast. Mud Turtle is in the pile of 2 Bloods that feel fine to use, but I don't really have any particular special purpose for them. Pronghorn is probably also there. Mox card. Really solid one at that. I've been tripped up multiple times thinking it was only a 2/2 as compensation for its reduced cost, but no, full 2/3 standard. Wicked. Yes, the only tutor card. What's that? You made a second one? Yeah, you made it 5 boned 1/1. Combo decks don't have that kind of bone gem. Well, actually, nobody has that kind of bone gem. For the life of me, I don't understand Aquanaut Hawk. Did Pixel just want to show off his original new sigil and make a funny interaction? 2 blood 3/1 is not removal prices. Honestly, 2 blood for 3 direct damage is a pretty bad trade. Behold! Blood aggro in its purest form. According to Ophelia's math, the fact that they draw copies means that the first 2 of them are basically 1 blood 2/2s. I don't know if it actually works out like that since the reality of games is a lot more complicated, but it does equal that many fewer main deck draws spent. Honestly, their main downfall is the limitations of how TTS Fecundity works, with there only being 3 copies, since drawing 2 heavily out of your main deck before you fail to 2 of them can mean drawing the 3rd early and breaking one of them. This is obviously really annoying when it happens to you, but I think you should leave it as is because it's also a really funny punish for playing super aggressively. This goes in the pile of generally decent 2 bloods. I think it has the most health out of all of them. No one with 1 brain cell and 1 card in hand is letting this thing live, so congratulations on spending 3 CA on a piece of bait. IMS probably has a lot more to say about these effective grizzly cubs, but I wouldn't want to misquote. As much as I want to put this one in the pile of generally decent 2 bloods, trademark video game accurate guardian is rather a downside here, since you're basically handing off control to your opponent. I like this one. I've always felt like a strategic genius busting this one out. It has 1 power to break through a defense line and then ramps up to 3 by the next turn. That being said, it is still very much mortal and very much blockable and not really an aggro tool so much as another expensive threat. This goes in the same pile with Mole of, guys, what if Bloodstall was real, but at least we get token dams now. Oh, that's right. I wrote that before I remembered that fucking Iggy Malcolm is here. Yeah. Interesting how tokens that pull to hand... Well, no, this is another note that I wrote forever ago before I noticed the pattern was inconsistent. It was going to say that tokens that get put in your hand, such as the Worker Ant here, had to use real templed cards, whereas ones that simply end up on the field, like the Skinslew's Tail, were neutral ones, but actually that pattern is violated by the pelts created by Strange Frog. Unless you're intended to put those in your deck, which is why they're marked as deck legal. That would be weird. Anyways. I've said enough already about how 2 blood is not a removal price. Adder doesn't even have the excuse of serving another purpose. It may be fast, yes, but you're paying for it later. Is this even a bad thing for the game overall? Surely we've both seen the horror that was overhaul removal, what with the 1 blood Black Scorpion. So maybe it's better for everyone if cards are allowed to stay on the field a couple seconds longer. This card in particular still sucks, though. We have Grizzly at home. I don't care about this. This is a certified Hood classic. I wonder, truthfully, if Half Bones ramps up too quickly for formats with Bone Gen, but thankfully for this case, this is not a format with Bone Gen. Behold the ender of games, the reliable plan B for aggro decks that take just a little bit too long to lunge for lethal. Maybe you can even work out a way to use it in the late game. The definitive 3 blood staple back at its full power, as in specifically the power stat. In truth, the viability of this card depends mostly on the legality of Blackout. The other 3 blood as either an alt Grizzly that's slightly more removal resistant, or for your Fish Gimmick combat trap deck, as we saw with the Bait Bucket. Direwolf is in an interesting position here, since Grizzly gives a full 4 power output by default, and the poor doggy only gets 3 health to his name. Double Strike is a definitively harder to block with Flood, way of attacking. But if you're in the phase of the game where the energy player can't even fill up half their field consistently yet, Grizzly is probably the safer bet. Why do we have this? We already have Great White. What purpose does this one serve? Spending equal resources to a Great White to remove a Great White? I don't get it. Here are the sub-costs, which in a perfect world would cost bones. This is not a perfect world. I forgot this thing was here for a little bit. Maybe that Bloodstall deck could actually happen. Fan of this thing for its insane power as a trader and the clog tool, but 5 energy is perhaps a little bit steep for it to be a staple. Still, versatile. 1/1 Nothing Sauce! Card that makes you lose 2 bones! There's probably a world where this is a crazy combo piece, maybe with leaders involved, but I've yet to see the deck. Main deck sack fodder is bad, generally, unless it goes card neutral. I feel like the quintessential bone beasts are nice to have in principle, but has the 2 extra damage off a bat ever really won somebody a game? Probably less useful generally than one of the more complicated tools, especially at the steep price of 4 bones. Steep price of 4 bones. Every 3 bones is 1 more blood on the field, or maybe this guy just hangs out to occasionally poke and clog. Unkillables are near impossible to design without breaking something, and Cockroach seems okay enough. We'd best not push it. Do not speak the name of the accursed mushroom lizard. Leader card! The classic really janky, technically a wolf if you do the math, for 5 bones. Certified Hood classic in any deck that likes to fill up its whole field, which usually isn't blood ducks. Free 1/2. Never hurts to have, except by eating up a deck slot, but that's generally only a huge concern in really aggressive plans. Which blood sometimes is. Somehow even jankier not wolf for 5 bones. If I have enough bones with this thing as a viable consideration, I would probably rather just have an alpha. 5 bones for a conditional 2/3 that scales until it gets removed. Tough to compete with bangers like Alpha and Cockroach, however. This goes in the same category as Coyote and Bat. At least you gave it some more versatility. There he is, Mr. Headless Jr. himself. Or is it a girl? Lol. What better way to close out a game than by dumping your free up until now resources on a sizable threat that takes a hot minute to remove, too? Okay, I'm pausing. Anyways, rare cards. Let's go. Oh, dear God. It should say something that we're able to go through as many different cards at a time as we are, with almost nothing of note to say, only to once in a while stumble upon one like this. This is a 2-bone copy of the best sigil you've played this game. It's a 4th magpie. It's a 2nd mantis god. It is thankfully not a 2-bone cockroach because of how its effect is specified, unless you lost your first one to a purist. But what's worse than being powerful is that it's also just really boring. You get limited rare slots in most of the conventional rules, so there's practically no deck that can draft Amoeba but chooses not to. It reduces your deck building options to 3 rares plus Amoeba if you have even the slightest intention of winning. Get it out of my sight. It's a beast now! Still does Bone Genesis sack fodder though. However, it can make for a nice removal splash since 4 bones is way less of a commitment than 2 blood. Okay, I like that you tried to make something interesting here, but second of all, the way this ability works really just raises questions about how the game rules work at all, and frankly, you don't seem all that interested in answering them. And firstly, it only has 1 health anyways. At least it's free. To this day, I don't know if the mental gymnastics reward actually fails to proc off this, because it's unclear whether the gems are being provided on your field. But either way, this thing is the Mox combo card of all time. Mox is Space Gloss. This thing doesn't even demand space. I continue to find it strange that this card alone gets to use TTS exclusive features. Well, I said that before I remembered that the Transformers were here. And though I can understand how annoying it would be without them. Anyways, yeah, Mothman is another one of those get rid of me quick cards. In other words, bait. Mold if it was good. Yeah, always big Mantis God. There's always room for Mantis God. Like, it's genuinely good enough to be a filler rare half the time, but there are still specific combos that you can do with it, even if most of them are just buffing its power. Oracle is Battery Tentacle, but with the Red Heart Permanence Clause. I genuinely didn't even remember this. 3/1 Waterborne, I'm assuming on average for her blood, sounds workable, but I'm left to wonder how consistent this thing really is, considering energy and playing lots of cards per turn don't generally mix that well. Is there a tentacle deck? Granted, being able to pick the tentacles is an upside, but they don't really inter-synergize outside of being related to this one card. What if Cat would have actually justified the space that it took up? I totally could have formatted this like the Transformers too, anyways. The fact that Chimekeeper exists solely to make it proc on Bell Tentacle is really funny. And other than that, this guy sure is 2 blood. Okay. Originally, I had a much shorter blurb here that assumed everyone was on the same page, but considering how the scope of this project has already widened a little bit, I may as well talk about, well, I say that. But I'm here now and I'm reading off the script, so I might as well talk about the whole history of this infamous little ring snake. See, if you've played Inscryption, that is the video game by Daniel Mullins, 2021, at all, you know what the Ouroboros is. 2-blood unkillable whose stats just keep going up every time it dies, even between your own deaths. Casey's Mob, which strips away a lot of the story meta progression, takes that last bit away, but it still continues scaling through a run. A PvP card duel doesn't even have the persistence of a singular roguelike run, so the Ouroboros and Pixel Profligate's Inscryption TCG would by definition always start as a mere 1-1, but still get stronger every death. There was an older version of Rescrypted that kept this behavior, but seeing as it was prime banless material, it's been changed to only buff power. Meanwhile, its estranged cousin Orobot only buffs health. Now, obviously, an infinite supply of 2-blood 5/5s, because most self-increasing stats cap at 5, that you don't even have to draw, is going to be a game winner. Because the opponent would have to drop removal pretty much every time it shows up. That dynamic changes a lot when it's only a 5/1, however, since even the slightest poke gets it off the field. And that 2-blood cost every time can start to actually add up. Is it still overpowered? That depends on where you draw the line, but it's sure as hell not the menace it used to be. Trade offer. I receive an extra card per turn. You receive an extra card per turn. Okay, you get to pick which tentacle it evolves into every time, provided you have the deck material, but once again, it's limited by the arbitrary requirement of fletchlings to still have their targets in the deck, so if you don't get it out early, there's not much of a point. Card that is really, really good if and only if you play it before drawing any of your field mice or steel mice, both of which you are running at 3, because that is how they work. This one's a weird case. Pelt Ice in the video game felt like Daniel trying to make a nod to strategies that involve guaranteeing a one specific card out and buffing the shit out of it at mod events, but the fair hand exploit is just still in the game. Pelt Ice here synergizes with Strange Frogs, actually. It's a surprise curve hopper that only works out of the deck, so it's maybe something. Okay, so most formats prior didn't really bother making the real ability that gives you items that persist outside the game card, and they just have Trinket Bearer just draw you a card. On that level, I have to respect the effort you put into this version, but holy shit, items! The item cards, bar one, are all built around giving you some amount of randomly selected item card, which are their own special type of card with different rules that aren't really fully explained. Except that they're apparently not hidden information like the cards in your hand are, barring the ones that turn themselves into cards when used. There are a handful of ludicrously powerful items, but also a lot of them are fairly underwhelming. So without further ado, in no particular order, we have I went to the wrong slide. A slight benefits. We have a very situational aggro push or maybe last second stall. We have a complete fucking board wipe. We have a free tutor. We have this thing, because it used to just be flat goat in a bottle, but obviously that doesn't help much to everyone else, even though the battery mechanic is still just here. We have a card that prevents your opponent from being able to play in the right lane. We have a 0/5. We have a preserve everything on your board button, which is nice. We have what if the pliers were basically just worse. We have steal a card. We have instant removal. We have instant removal, but good again. We have an extra fucking turn. We have one side deck card. We have the card that makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Players cry. And we have a battery. Oh yeah, and we have 4 bones. So needless to say, your mileage will massively vary with items, but it's pretty likely it's unlikely they will hurt to use. So 2/2 with a fairly unique upside is, decent. I don't care how shit this video becomes. Remember how I was just saying that most self-buff effects stop at 5? This one goes up to 8 now, and 2 at a time. It was always going to be a weird card to translate. Hodag from the video game was similar to Ouroboros, then it just kept its stat buffs forever, but seeing as it can only die once per game of this, you can't really translate that. Conditional 2-blood 3/5 and higher, I don't know. Give me a moment. Right, okay, so what the fuck is a keyword? It does, of course, get the benefit of being a gem card, but its primary purpose is being targeted by cards that are normally looking for either some kind of token or some kind of specific gimmicky category. And, yeah. you search this out with weird effects. 3/3 for 2 blood is above the curve, yes, but outside of the weird token cheating, it's kind of underwhelming for taking a rare slot. I keep tripping myself up with the stupid way I wrote this. Look, this card exists so that you can see something that wants to search out a dam and just play it for free and play a fucking amalgam. That's why that is what people run this for. And speaking of, not once have I ever seen this thing paid for with its blood cost. You see, in the video game, the issue rack is a jump scare since you literally don't know which card from your deck it's disguised as and when it's going to show up. Obviously, these virtual pieces of cardboard aren't sentient or self-powering, so that mechanic won't work. Pixel had the bright idea of the unspeakable sigil, letting this card become the insane combo piece of all time. That beaver just filled up 3 slots for a 7-power board state in 1 turn, pulling more than triple its weight for the state of blood cost. And if you thought this thing just showing up out of some random bullshit corner was unreasonable, take note of Repulsive. It's dedicated removal or bust, except a straightforward touch of deck can't even do anything about it. I hate this thing, and it deserves to go to hell before it dies. On the subject of 3 blood rares that I kind of fucking hate. Remember how I was saying that Mantis God is good enough to take as a mere filler rare since you don't have to commit to it hard for it to be good? How's a free 3/2 with Healing Sound? Corpse Eaters are already a bit of an annoying punish for literally just playing the game, and there's good reason why they don't get much more powerful than a 1/2. Free 3/3 is huge for basically anyone. A free 3/3 is huge for basically anyone who plans on at least 1 card dying in the game. It's just very obviously good and self-sufficient in an environment where so many other cards are either massively expensive or demand intricate combo pieces to do anything. This is boring. This one used to have the Super Jank Bifurc plus Trifurc, which was, of course, obscenely powerful, but at least it was really, really funny. This is just a It's an Omni-Strike Grizzly. This is an Omni-Strike Grizzly. You can't block it with anything, you cannot keep it on the field, but at least it comes with an actual price. And you can theoretically punish those white hits with several instances of quills, or maybe some combat traps, I don't know. 4 blood 7/7. Definitive hyper aggro you know what I'm saying. Right, so these guys. Okay. So if you've ever played the video game, you'd know that you start off with this funny little guy called the Stoat. He's annoying as hell and thinks you're a dumbass and criticizes every move you make. But more importantly, he's above the curve that the rest of the game establishes. There's also only one of him. Later on, you get the Stink Bug, who's even more above the curve and much nicer to you, and they're eventually joined by the Stunted Wolf. It should be noted, however, that none of these cards have any particularly unique abilities. They're simply decent cards. So eventually, once you end up in here, in DTS hell, you can optionally go looking for these... No, what am I saying? I'm describing Act 3. When you go to Act 3, you can find the Lonely Wizbot and the Fishbot, former of which actually does have a unique ability that doesn't appear anywhere else in the game, and the latter of which nominally shares Gift Bearer with, Giftbot. But his own version is mechanically unique, coming with an entire pool of exclusive cards, like 3 of them. So in accordance with tradition, the talking cards here are 1 per deck, and although some takes on the game have tried to make them into quasi-rare specialist deck capstones, most of them here get no unique attributes except for their fancy rainbow visual, which is in fact just a static color filter overlaid on the image. So anyways, you like items? Here's items. You want to see this weird sigil combo off a hawk, but again, you want bones? They'll be here in 1 to 3 business days. Oh, look at that! He's got a sigil! It's a pretty nice one, too, since his only competition in that department is an energy cost card, so he's basically got a monopoly on how actual energy ramp. If you do the math. Can you imagine if Skunk wasn't a total dog shit card? Okay, so this guy also gets a sigil that he didn't have before, and while there are certainly game plans that involve Mox and Blood, they don't usually have very much overlap with the ones where gem animation is a useful ability. Okay. So, is this guy a rare, or is it simultaneously a rare and a talker? I called them legendaries in the other parts of this. I don't know, ask your TO. Beyond this, though, you'll recall I said that other format Street Talkers, especially Capstones, and this card would maybe be one of those if it didn't suck ass. This is a game with resource cards. You know how a ton of Magic cards have stipulations about doing things to non-land cards? We have no such protections. So any random pull from a discard pile has a 50% chance of just coming up as a useless little side deck thing. Right, okay, where were we? Right. So, with that, we are roughly a quarter of the way through the pool. The beasts certainly have some certified hood classics, but also plenty of forgettable filler cards. The undead pool, I'm afraid, exacerbates that effect. So lo and behold, the two best undisputed side deck options in the entire game. Actually, that position sometimes goes in one of the mock college, depending on the day of the week. According to Gold, this is because Undead is allowed to be the side deck temple, which is compensation for its primary card pool being ass. I get you want bulk removal on demand anytime. Who the hell needs squirrel blocking when you can just fucking kill things for free? As if one direct upgrade wasn't enough, here's Squirrels with Burrower, designed to block if the opponent's game plan was to field exactly one Grizzly turn 1 and coast off that forever with the assurance you would just straight up die. This shuts down that plan entirely. What it doesn't do, though, is account for the cheeky little 1/1 they shoved right next to the Grizzly to kill this thing first, since the Burrower effect is not in your control. Checkmate, atheists. Okay, so these cards all cost bones. Bones are not easy to get in large quantities in Rescrypted because reasons. If your game plan requires playing more than maybe 2 cards that cost 5 bones or more, you are going to have a bad time. Keep that in mind as we go through these. This is one of the few cards that come out bone positive by virtue of costing nothing. It also doesn't do anything besides give you bones very slowly. This card is mathematically better than blocking with Squirrel, and that's the highest praise I can give it. Yes, the quintessential bone generator. 1 bone to recoup its cost by the end of that turn, and maybe make an extra by the end of the next one. These are the expectations we're working with. I could see this card having excellent use as a space saver in one second. I could see this card having excellent use as a space saver in Mox decks, but we must recall that thanks to the 2-tempo rule, its hidden extra cost is that you have to run undead. Yeah, remember how I said Opossum was trash? Oh, look at this, a combat trap that gives the opponent fuel. Brilliant! You are paying 2 bones to get 4 bones. The average card nets you 1 bone. You paid a whole card and deck slot to get 1 extra bone. I'll be honest, I haven't used this. Stinky is a nice defensive ability and all, but 2 bones is a lot to ask when you're operating at the speed of a Mantis God. Takes up deck slots to be a synergy piece. Like most undead cards, it is quite bad if you draw it to your hand. A consolation prize for the poor souls determined to make Spirit Orb work, or perhaps a synergy piece for Warlock. Actually, after testing, this is a piece for Warlock. Explode Bot, but not. We'll talk about that one later. This is actually one of the best undead cards for the pure reason of going CA neutral. Even with everything I said about discard draws likely being dud side deck cards, draw power is a scarce enough resource in Inscryption that's still huge. I forget this was here. At least the misery of the Skelemox deck has company. Combat removal without the downside of detonators. Maybe I've slept on this. Can you imagine if Sparrow was even fucking worse? Bees outclass this! I'm not kidding you, I have so little to say about this card that when I was writing the script, I stalled for 2 entire days when I got to this point. It's not even an especially bad card, it's just kind of weird to use. Maybe there's a world where it finishes off a blood aggro push, but I think technically its best use case is as removal right now. It's a big skeleton. It is a large skeleton, 3 power. Now, this guy's bad as a pure result of Bones being unrunnable, but I just really like him. Sentries with power hold a special place in my cold, evil heart, and this is possibly the dumbest design that could ever feasibly represent this stat line. I love him. Stinky's a good sigil, yeah. This card's a pretty good stall tool, since one power requires addressing eventually, but you can't just poke him off with a skeleton or something and be done with it. You have to actually get an actual unit out. How annoying. Okay. So on first glance, 4 cards is a fucking lot, and may lead one to believe this card would be a great aggro piece, but 4 health and combat depth and no moving is also a lot. Of course, it's also possible to make a deck built around getting one of these out and then intentionally killing it off, but there aren't that many ways of doing that. Maybe the line is to cover the whole field in bombs so that the opponent just isn't allowed to touch anything, but the point is, this thing is essentially the combat trap. I know Pac-Roll's also here, but 3 months is a lot cheaper. This is the definitive card for deciding how viable the airborne sigil should be. How did you make this? This is still just bad. If you're balancing other actual cards around not directly outclassing this thing, then I think your opinions just shouldn't count anymore. Oh, I forgot this was here. There have been other takes on this card that allow it to be just an absolute menace of bone gen for basically no cost, but this one doesn't do that. If you're unwilling to lose any bones on it, as you should be considering giving you more bones, its only purpose, then this is a 6 energy 1/1 that might start giving you bones next turn. You can also combo it with an energy rare to make it do it this turn instead. This card has 1 health, by the way. I don't understand what the point of this thing is. Guardian is a bad ability, actually. This is a solid classic. Mathematically a 1 bone 1/2, provided you can make the down payment. So this one is in the category of cards that don't actually win the game, but are really annoying to deal with regardless. That Undead seems to have quite a few up for some reason. Is it bone gen? Not at that price. This is not a combat trap, but it technically has most of the same weaknesses of one. See my prior rant on any of the fledglings. We have Long Elk at home, I guess. So admittedly, I dropped this card when it stopped costing 1 gem. Sapphire at that. I still think that the nerf was the right decision because it was an utter menace at 1 sapphire, but 4 bones gives me pause. 4 bones is a pretty bad price for a gift bearer or an 0-1 fledgling individually, but with it having both, your opponent is all but guaranteed to kill it, so 4 bones for a mandatory diversion that also goes neutral is maybe something. I don't know. This card is an interesting concept, but I feel like I'd rather just have a shield latcher most of the time. Revenant, what if airborneness? It exists to win the game this turn, and that's it. Repeat after me, kids! A bone card recouping its cost after a delay or a condition is not bone gen! That all being said, this would probably be a pretty good card if it were possible to get it out in the early game, since a burrower with a consequence that pushes... Since a burrower with a consequence punishes the opponent for not spending the effort to kill it. Haven't tested the skeleton synergy deck yet. Maybe it goes crazy. I don't know. This card has 1 health and costs 4 bones. If, for the sake of argument, you have 3 zombie tribe cards already in hand and the bones to afford them, you are spending 4 bones to save 3 bones and get an extra 1/1 for your trouble. It costs 1 bone more to just play a normal zombie card in its place. This card is a 1 bone 1/1 that does nothing in the best circumstances. Is it meant to just be a message that cost reduction effects are not allowed to be good, or are you just that bad at math? We have steel mice at home, except these ones can also be units too, a little bit. Not really. Another one for the pile of really annoying, but doesn't do anything, except this one is really, really, really annoying. I don't understand why you made this. Why'd you make this? Anyway, Bone Heap at home with a very bad return on investment. 1/2 vampires, lame. Personally, I hate this card for the fact that it forces me to acknowledge the variable power effects as sigils, which they were never meant to be, but it's also overpriced, so whatever. Say it with me, kids! Bone Gen that rebooms it! I'm not gonna say that. Yes, I know it mathematically works out to be a 3-bone mantis in the optimal case, but that temporary 2-bone loss hurts tempo and makes it harder to buff this thing, which is the natural inclination of multi-strikers, so... Remember how I said there was more than one hoarder? No, there isn't. This is another card that I've heard long arguments about. It's still bad, but it's allowed to be a curve setter or something, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it should be a conduit. That could be fun. Sure, they're not chimes. They don't synergize with anything but specifically the Douse, but I guess magicking up some blockers is technically Bone Profits. This card falls victim to a thing you did where I think you're trying to replicate the trigger of Sentry, but it only says moves, so either you both play with the concession that the rules text isn't real, or this card is useless. Assuming it does work as intended, it's probably still useless. This card is really fun when you get to play it, which is not often. I don't get it. Mathematically, this is an elk. It's fine. Okay, now this is a scary bone card. Exciting stuff. This is alpha if it was less accessible. I hope Syntax is happy. Salmon. Something interesting. Lest I be mistaken, this is one of 2 purest cards in the format with non-zero power. It's also expensive. Those may have been an intentional correlation, but given the other one costs a single gem, I'm inclined to believe they may not have been. This is funny order of operations gimmicks. Would Bloodfall be horrifying if Cairns made this card playable? Probably not. This is probably a marginal upgrade to Mummy Lord in most cases. This is silly! Seems mostly bad otherwise, but maybe you can bank on the opponent being exhausted on units to trade with? I don't know. Yeah. This is the guy Mummy Lord has to worry about. And speak of the devil. It's a stat block, who cares? Haha, Jonathan, you did not kill my mimic! Oh, and we're attack conduit? Actually, I did my research and apparently it was only Overhaul that gave it that. But anyways, 11 bones is a lot to ask for a very survivable null conduit. So yeah, that was Bones. If you were unfortunate enough to need something for this tempo, maybe one of these alt costs can tide you over. Like, you know, the ideal world where the cycle is followed and you get energy. Or maybe you'll get this thing. It was Pixel's fault. I don't get it. Is this in the wrong order? Wait, yeah, this is a fledged thing that does nothing. This is... I've been hypothesizing it as a combo piece that can let a aggro DMC work. You know, Dead Man's Chest, you make it brittle so it dies. Haven't had much luck with that, though. Definitely a weird 2-blood, but it seems like it can have uses. Anyway, this one is Pixel's fault. I don't get it. And this is a Corpse Eater. And this is if you want to play Bloodfall with no beasts. It's not as good, but it's here. And here's your other Bloodfall tool with really nice pivot power. I cannot think of very many scenarios where Haunting Sprinter of all things is going to be useful, but there might be exactly one. Don't know. This one I actually like. It's the Ijurat gimmick if it was just a little fun surprise instead of being toxic as hell. This one is also hurt a lot by the discard being full of side deck cards. Big fan of this guy. Fun sacrifice synergy without being super aggro. Really versatile control card. Fun time. Thick's right at home. There's a hair in my mouth. Okay, get ready for some of the most unplayable shit and some of the most broken things you've ever seen. I don't get why this guy is an undead. I think it's a holdover from Pixel's Undead where you're expecting to just play it like Blood 2. Wow, that's a nice deck you made there with careful bone economy management and efficient traders. Want to see where all my bones go? I think this guy shouldn't have to take up a rare slot. I think that would be good. That would be awesome. This is a good card. Huge fan of this guy. He's so fucking funny, and there's genuinely tons of ways to play around him, too. Honestly funny. Do I even have feelings about this card? It's one of the crazy blood fuels in Act 2, but, like, obviously Bone cost nerfs it for everyone, but I think it hurts Bones more than most. When the king speaks. He doesn't trigger play effects anymore, so, like, I don't know, more Latchers, more Gift Bearers, maybe? Hell, maybe he could be real Bone Gen. By pure math, this is an overcurve wolf, but he's definitely weird enough to justify being a rare. Shutterbug at home or something, I don't know. Huge flavor win, but honestly, Black Hole doesn't seem to synergize super well with 2/2 stats. Oh, God. I hate you for this, because yes, it is funny as hell, but you are almost objectively better off just playing a Keeper. And if you're better off playing a Keeper, you're better off playing a Magpie. will be treating this. There he is. Blood aggro is on the table. Pirate power is weird. Like this guy. Very clear synergy path, but plenty of other options too. This is exclusively for whack combo decks, because 6 pounds is a lot. Okay, remember how I said there was one non-random item card? Did I say that? I don't remember. This is it. Ban this guy. This is an hourglass for 6 pounds. Oh, look at how they massacred my boy. I do not care. He was not my boy. Oh, right. Yeah, I was going to talk about squirrels. Maybe Vermin Tribe is a toolbox. Except no, it's just putting them in your hand, so they still cost blood. So you're just going even. This is a massacre. I hate you. Diet Headless. Spanking on your opponent, not have anything else left to play. Speaking of, maybe we can live to see the day where this guy gets rushed out like Yuli, but he's still just as fine as a mid-late ramp closer. Okay, now see, this card would be infinitely better if it didn't have to rely on material in the deck. If you could barely survive by throwing up Pirates and Skeletons all game and then get rewarded with this beast, that would be a hell of a game. But as it stands, you're expected to not have played them yet. Wait, this thing's 5 HP. I don't get it. I already explained talking cards. I'm not doing it again. It should be noted that this is specifically the fake Casey, the one in the Pixel game. It also has a jank implementation of an ability that I already don't like. Please, just one bone cheaper. Let him profit just a little bit, please. Sure, this is a pirate. Sure. Solid upgrade on Frankenstein. Slightly better Porcupine, which actually, I never noticed this when I was writing the script in the first place, but we had to check afterwards. Porcupine is not in this format. So anyways, normally I freak out about looter cards, but this is honestly underwhelming. This is the same weird half-rare deal as Leshy, except this one's actually a straightforwardly useful ability, so that's neat. We have attained the halfway mark. Or, fucking funny Gaster reference, I don't know. But out of the 4 quadrants of stat cards, bad cards, cheap cards, and whatever flavor Moxes on the day of the week, we've made it to the Isle of Energies, fam. They are not fast, but they sure do turn up every turn. Buckle up. So, we could linger on here for a little bit. That's probably where I was supposed to be for that one note. Anyways. Leapbots! The quintessential stall blocker. Truthfully, considering the nature of energy just showing up for free, Leapbot's only purpose is to keep you from dying, and in many cases does a job better done by some other temple's side. Squirrels if you like to substantially splash blood, Mox if you're doing some weird gemify gimmick, or most likely skeletons or ankle grabbers. It's worth noting that their Mighty Leap is technically a unique upside among side decks, so they're the only one that can stall out an airborne by eating your draw every turn, assuming your whole field is covered. Remember those crazy empty vessels from Part 3 with all the wacky upgrades? What if they were just worse in every way? Empty vessels here get one of 4 vaguely useful defense abilities after you play them, making them impossible to meaningfully strategize with, unless you're running their dedicated supports, but why would you do that? Behold the cards you actually want. Another free Latcher with a very minor sigil. Seems to be a pattern here. It is much less oppressive against a real sapient human player than against the dumb AI of Part 3, but it has a special place in my heart. This is a niche combat trap removal for exactly 1 powers, I think. Do the math. Is Deathmail anywhere else in this format? Now, I haven't personally made much use of this card, but imagine how much of a fuck you it is to combat traps. Now, I was going to say maybe this card should have been a side deck, but I'm willing to believe in the principle of main deck conduits. The card still sucks, of course, but I don't think there's much to be done about it. If it had starting power, I'd consider it, but a 1 orange 1/1 isn't terribly appealing. Ramp! So apparently there's this whole thing called lane theory that's about what's possible and viable with which cards going in which lanes, the optimal way to place and arrange your units. This card is a fuck you to all of that, and it's awesome, but it's also really annoying to keep track of. This could have been a side deck. It is the definitive weakest combat trap as is. You used to be able to proc this off the hammer. It was some beautiful deck thinner. Alas, it has fallen into being a combat trap. He sure goes. Okay, so this is another card Ophelia has been historically afraid of for its combat potential with blood. Latchers as blood fuel is a smart idea in general, of course, but it's still main deck sack fodder. V seems to think that Sorry. We can be more proper. Gold seems to be under the impression that the balance of half of the format revolves around this one card as the go-to staple to ensure fragile combo pieces get more staying power. I'm inclined to ask why there wasn't an alternative. Maybe that's what Spear was. Who knows? 2 energy for 2 blood! I know, I was just ragging on main deck sack fodder, but this one at least mathematically goes neutral. I was hoping Giftbot would turn up next so I can continue the thought. This is Giftbot, but dependent on the circuit, and also kind of dependent on your opponent not killing the circuit before itself. This is the block a skunk wishes it could be, which isn't all that aspirational of a wish, but it's something. Oh, goddamn you, where's Giftbot? Anyway, yeah, Airborne 1-1 is better than Banshee, worse than B. Next card, there he is! This is the main deck sack fodder. 2 energy to go neutral, even on sacrifice. Love to see it. Everyone loves the draw power, of course, but Blood really likes it. This guy and Meatbot are the foundation of Tech Blood. Because, you know. Where are we? Oh, here we go. Okay. What was once the very face of removal has been reduced to a mere combat trap. It's bittersweet to see, as even though Explo is my special little guy, it's almost certainly healthier for the game overall that it isn't such a dominant staple. It's still a relatively good combat trap, of course, as 2 energy is a very, very accessible cost, and very much does what it says on the tin. I don't know anymore. Why period and name? This guy is a skeleton. Therefore, a marginally better target for Ghost Ship if you have tech access, and probably better card than the Bone one generally. Oh, here we go. The reason people run conduits. Considering conduit side deck is dead, I think it's allowed to be cheap because the real cost is completing the circuit. I had a tangent at one point where I thought this might be the new Explobot. It requires a little more support, sure, but it's ironically more versatile in some cases. You ever use this thing to blow up 3 corners of the enemy field? Magical stuff. Behold, the vessel support no one asked for and no one will ever use. If it were a full-blown Lifeblood, I'd consider it, but the main fear there is Mox. However, 2 Temple means that that's really not going to be actually happening. Besides, Mountain Goat already exists, so I don't think it'd impact that space either. A Lifeblood Blood Vessel could probably let you pull some crazy shenanigans in Undead too, but here I am fantasizing. As it stands, this card is exclusive support for a terrible side deck that in terms of reliability gets outclassed by fucking squirrels. Haven't tried cells with no side conduits. 3 energy, 3-1 is still going to get shit kicked out on the next turn, but maybe it makes for a decent trader. This is a certified hood classic. Guy does it all. Deal with a bomber, leaping trap left to hang. Done. Clear the way for a big hitter to swing for lethal. Done. Force the opponent to move a resource card while still punching for direct. Done for the low, low price of turn 3. This is the part where I reopened the dock after 6 months of not working on it, because there was a whole thing going on, but now that's dead. So anyways. There should ideally be some point where I run through and make some edits, but as it stands, the game hasn't been changing, and also I think most of this is still pretty accurate. So keeping right down the list, 3 energy removal. What it loses in speed, it gains in reliability and precision. Now this is a nice unit. 1 power over 2 hits, any day of the week. Okay, so he's nerfed from his PKCM version with a higher cost, and he's also got a lower health, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily bad. The main problem is that I can't think of many inspiring uses for HP gain that wouldn't be better served by just running tankier cards in the first place. Genduits isn't real, but this one's probably the best one in the cycle. Really haven't messed with Moxergy much, considering Blue Mage combo is just that much more appealing, but this guy being gemified could probably spell something pretty spicy for an orange control build. Bloodless Leap Bots mean it's not the resource engine it used to. Oh wait, hang on a second, you can pull out the goddamn Leap Neo. It's weird. 3 energy for a 1 power Waterborne Aquanaut certainly isn't the worst trade, but I would think with 3 health melted just makes it annoying. I don't know. Good job! You took what otherwise would have been an insane Mox control tool, and maybe Blood for that matter, and made it only work with the unrunnable vessels! Well, okay, I'll be real. They're not unrunnable, they're just weird. I don't... Fuck, man, he sure is. Why did you have to add more spit to the tongue? It sure is a 2-power trader. I remember some vague notion about this card being a tech staple, but I can't remember where that came from. 2 power for the less than 5 energy is certainly rare among tech commons. Behold, Tech Blood mid-game. It's cool if you can get in a buff conduit, but you can also just run Mantis God and not have it be useless without a conduit up. Well, shit on my dicks. There's a 2 power for less than 5 energy among tech commons. Double strike too, so maybe this is another candidate for replacing Splinter Cell in a pinch. I don't see it surviving to become its airborne version, mostly. Okay. This card does not meet my quality standards. Are you deliberate with the moves to oppose phrasing, or are you treating that like a keyword that procs the same way as Sentry and just not explaining yourself? And why is this sigil just a spiral? Why does it look like that? Is this really worth 4 energy? Who hurt you? Hell yeah, Gunbot! Okay, this one is allowed to be prohibitively expensive because those are some very lenient search criteria. You can whip out a fucking Magnus Mox. This was clearly... Yeah, actually, after I did my research, it was Pixel who clearly tried to adapt Badfish into a slightly better than useless card, and... yeah. Behold, a 4 energy Mantis. Okay. So the note here says that I should try to build around it. In reality, I have built around it. It is extremely powerful. It is extremely hilarious. It should probably not be that. Mostly it calls into question why it is allowed to specifically target a stat card and discard while so many other effects have to pull a random one. It's hilarious. Anyway, Ants for the Ant God. Oh wait, you nerfed the Worker Ant to 1 HP. Somehow I still don't see Ants becoming a mid-range archetype. There he is. Absolute unit. That 1 power is staying put. Mechanically, it feels a little bit scattered, but goddamn, I'm just so partial to this design. Oh, look, a 2/2 with punishments for whatever tries to trade it out. Oh, boy. Oh, dear. The combo deck's wet dream. Shit like this that convinces me you expect games lasting more than 8 turns to be a rarity. 5e can be a lot to ask for. That said, it's an insane design, and I love it for that. This is one of those cards where it feels like there's supposed to be an optimal build to make for it, where it feels fun and effective to use, but I just cannot find it, ergo it feels unfun. Bait. Gembound! Yay! Something for Mox Energy to look forward to! Again with the health effects being super expensive. Granted, this one is playstep speed and doesn't even take your hammer, but still, I can't even cite Ogfloat as being your source of trauma because I don't think you've ever actually played it. I might be sleeping on this one. Partially waterborne transformer with a constant 2 power. Sounds kind of brazy. Vessel card, I sleep. Also, 5e for a 1/2 with that? Seriously? Looks scuffed, badly defined, maybe viable if circuits were consistent. My boy Borg is a common and at the uselessly late game cost of 5 energy. Do you hate him? Vessel card, I sleep. Well, okay, there would maybe be some synergy with the Master Vessels and a Mox Energy build, but 5 energy is an awful lot to ask for there. There he is. Maybe he's secretly cracked outside of Mono Tech. I doubt it. Also, he single-handedly raises like half of the questions about current versus base power. He sure is a 6-drop 2 whatever. It's not a weak card, but I don't picture it winning terribly many games. Okay, I don't care if this card is bad. It's way too funny to not keep. Oh, here we are. The face of turn 6 WinCon. Tempo swings that just never stop. Would have been really awkward to effectively nerf it without making it really, really awkward to use, but I honestly respect what you did. You didn't nerf Double Gunner, you nerfed 6 drops, man. Double Gunner is the only good 6 energy common, and you only get 3. I still have problems with it, but I respect it. It sure is a hound, man. At least 2/3 somewhat compensates for multiplayer Guardian. I don't know. I really want to like this card because it's a really funny effect, but 6 energy for a 1/1 is just crippling for how dependent it is on the rest of your board setup. Yes, it's true that simply having 2 units next to it makes a 3/1 out the gate, but Tech is the I can only play 1 card per turn temple, and the sorts of controller ramp decks that reliably get to turn 6 are probably going to have some 0 powers to get through. It's a bit of a win more is all. Here's the rare ones, which I did not write a specific note for, but most of these suck, honestly. It's a bigger Sentry. That's neat. 3E to roll is a decent enough compromise, I guess. New art is neat. He is without flaw. I don't really see what the point is of not letting them be gems. They're already competing with their Mox counterparts for the rare slots. Well, then again, so many of the Mox rares are useless. Also, Gemified plus naturally reduced cost means this thing might only cost 1 energy in a blue deck. Intentional? Funny. This one doesn't attack, but it gets 3 health. Probably more useful in actual Mox gameplay. Hell if I know. Okay, so basically copy-paste everything I said about Amiibo. We especially don't need 2 of them. This card would be really cool if it had anything at all to synergize with. It can't synergize with Gambo because you don't get enough energy in one turn and they both die instantly. Also, vessels aren't real. This card is fucking stupid. Actually, I take that back. It is a very funny parody of shitty overhaul rares, which are of course fucking stupid. Fuck you, die! Oh, sorry, that's not me talking. That's what this card does. But my actual opinion of it is, fuck you, die. I called Explode Bots the face of removal, but that's because that is because they also exist in an IMF with pretty much all the same functionality. This card, this godforsaken PNG, is the true face of removal. 3 energy to delete absolutely whatever. 0 questions asked. Plus, you get a 1/2 out of it. No interaction, no penalty, no strategy, no fun. I will never understand how Pixel took the world's funniest board and turned it into this total abomination. Die. Anyways. Probably a good call to have it not be gemified. Does Gem Skeptic even do anything here? There are no multi-mono gens by definition, so what strategy is that locking you out of? I would like this better if it made tokens, probably. At least it's cheap. Yeah, this is in here too. Probably still makes the most sense in blue decks. Also, do you not have an apostrophe? Twin. Girly pop. Honey. You made a 4-state transformer card with 1 health. So the precise wording of the sigil makes it balanced enough, probably. I don't know. Another funny effect, but underwhelmingly inconsistent rare. Okay, now I'm a staunch believer in never letting your opponent put their grubby little paws on your physical cards that you own, and yes, I am aware that this is nearly exclusively for TTS, but even then, I prefer to keep my decks as neat as I can. All this to say, I really don't think I'd sign off on this effect. It's very flavorful, yes, but I personally disapprove. Besides, imagine you're running Bonesurgy and you get to steal a fucking junior mage or something. What the hell do you do with that? Wonderfully flavorful replacement for the overly fancy curve hopper from Pixels. Again, it is perfect. It is without flaw. Fuck the overhaul team for ruining it. Learn to run some fucking removal. Jesus fucking Christ. This card, however, I can give no such praise. You tell me it is meant to counter Ouroboros, but as worded, it simply makes no sense. How often is it even that you need to counter specifically a threat that works by starting with small numbers and scaling them into larger ones after being played? How often is it useful to do this after said card has already attacked? Does it even work on fledglings? Furthermore, this thing is 5 fucking energy. An Explode Bot is 2. Another Aurabot is 6. A Shutterbug is 5 as well. Mrs. Bomb is 3, though granted I see her as a problem in her own right. Who on earth is this for? You know what? I'm checking. Is what I did when I wrote the script. Presuming I can do a successful job at rewording its ability to actually work, I can see this card hypothetically being an intuitive counter for anything that modifies itself while on the field. You know, Hodag, Vampire, Stim Mage, possibly Refresh a Shield Bot. Anything that immediately changes itself somehow upon being played. I would try to word it so it effectively never gets replayed. You know, Amoeba and Red Heart. Fledge things, which would probably require a special case, but fuck you, I'll do it. Anything that modifies other cards on an event-based permanent basis. You know, Latchers, Amabot if we have that, which we don't, or Oil Jerry. That's, I can see being maybe a usable card if I gave it a lower cost, but I think the current version is mostly just a casualty of your refusal to write fully parsable rules text. Lol. This thing is weird. I can see it being a usable alternative to the main energy conduit because what it takes away in per turn tempo gives back an extra survivability. That's neat. Where are we? Oh, right. Electron 5e for this? That's like, there are 2 cells. There are 2 cells in the format. Didn't I have a thing earlier for her about how random discard sigils are usually bad? Even with each one being optional, it just seems so unlikely you'll get anything good enough to justify running this thing. Okay. I hate this card so fucking much. It is the funniest thing possible, and it is the biggest headache possible. I really want to keep it, but it'll take a lot of work. Also, 6 energy is a lot, but I respect it for following the ideology of make it inviable so it doesn't become toxic. Well, okay, it's certainly not 6 energy 5/5 anymore. It's not 6 energy 5 anything anymore, and since it only scales health, this is really funny, but still nearly useless as anything but late game blood fuel, but it's really good at being late game blood fuel. Double Boros lives. Here's the tech talkers, I guess. He sure is a 4E tutor. Conduit thing is one of those things that's like theoretically cool, but again, conduits suck. Maybe he searched out a buff conduit, I don't know. This one's honestly kind of crazy for what you can get out of it. I could see nerfing it, actually. Seems pretty generally good, but by specializing in nothing, he fails to have a real purpose. Oh, also, bones aren't real. Combat Trap. Love that he exists so much. Double Death is just so much fun. I'm not certain the redesign was fully necessary. Also, Klinger becomes a lot less useful with no backlane. Again, this feels like one of those effects that's theoretically very powerful in the optimized build, but what on earth is the build for this? What card are you going to have drawn exactly one of, but want 3 of by turn 5 in tech? It's not energy bots because it's turn 5. Is it double gunners? Do you just want to draw absolutely anything because in the worst case you still get to thin your deck of unneeded dead draws? Further, are you meant to be locked into your choice before you search your deck for anything? I guess you can always check your discard to see what you've definitely already drawn. I don't know. More consistent than Leshy, but still not very consistent. Right, I didn't put a funny end cap slide on this one. I'm pausing. Okay, we were here-ish, yeah? Where is... right. Okay. Oh god. No one in all of history has ever done mocks correctly. Not even Nate. Especially not Daniel himself. I've seen every mistake made. I've seen Shatter miss the entire point. I've seen multi-mono encourage the most boring strategies. I've seen Prism also be there for some reason. And you've been adamant in avoiding all 3 of those, so let's see how this infinite resource, infinite tempo deck goes here. These are the 3 Mox colors, green, orange, blue, 01, Bloodless, Gem Tribe. What more am I meant to say about them? The new art is kind of weird, I don't really get that. Okay, so firstly, it only makes sense to separate these by color. Secondly, you seem to have arranged them with blue going first. Blue Mox has historically been the most broken color across most iterations, due in part to the other 2 having relatively defined mechanical themes, and blue conversely ending up as an unhinged toolbox full of leftovers, and also partly because of somewhat insane tools like Gem Fiend and absolutely insane tools like Blue Mage. It only seems right that we start here. Something doesn't sit right with me about this being an 0-1. Granted, Pixel made it even worse, and 1-2 is almost certainly unacceptable power creep, but I still feel there's a tendency to overvalue the power of Scry when the Blue Mage from the Act 2 is sitting right there. I like this one, though. It's more drawing util in blue, while also trying its absolute hardest to not feed the Blue Blood Nightmare any more than it's already eating. It's cute. I only remember this card because it used to be a self-powering combo with Pixie Thief, or whatever the blue one's called, I don't remember. Then you nerf the shit out of it, but it doesn't matter because the orange one still exists. We'll get there. In the meantime, I'm either missing something huge, not out of the question, or this guy sucks. I see no reason it shouldn't just let you search your side deck, since half of it is almost definitely going to be blue Mox anyways, and running more than 2 different cards in your side deck is practically suicide, so the only realistic use case is that you shuffle a Sapphire in to get back another Sapphire, so you shuffle that in to get another Sapphire, so you shuffle that back in to get a Sapphire, and then you shuffle that one back in, and finally you have a green gem. Why? Poor definition of hiding aside, this card seems cooler than it is viable. Curls on anything is cool, I guess, but I don't know if it's worth a whole card. Oh, look at how they massacred my day/dom. I mean, it's a free Hawk if you did a combo this turn, which is pretty nice, but it's a tad Whitmore-ish. Oh, perfect baby boy with that flaw. Would not change a single thing, not even letting it pull rabbits from discard. Well, okay, that might be it. I might let it pull a Mox or something in place of the rabbit so I can separately buff Rabbit Hole for Warren, but I don't think I would let it pull rabbits out of the discard. Stay breaking, you piece of shit! It is a combat trap, but it is a really, really funny combat trap. I want to like it, but... oh, one combat trap. I don't know. You can't even really synergize it with Soothsayer because the opponent might just ignore it and force you to draw the expensive card yourself. With Airborne being the definitive anti-meta, 1-1 for blue is fine. There he is. I suppose by virtue of being the most notable gem-dependent card, it raises the question of why Gem Tribe is so mechanically different from the Gem Resource provision. I still think it's weird, but at this point you seem to accept it as something baked into the game, so whatever. -1 line, baby! Seriously though, can you believe people used to complain about this thing? You can call it anti-fun, sure, but overpowered? Literally just move something around? He was always a bit broken. Oops. Putting him in blue just makes the other 2 colors weaker. At least he doesn't get power anymore. Yeah, Chief, I don't get this one. This one is actually really quite nice. A calm no thank you to whatever bullshit is happening. I'll take this opportunity to rant. I used to have the whole hang-up about floating states, but I honestly see that as much less of a problem now that I'm not primarily playing by doing self-duels in which I get so bored that I lose all focus and end up passing 40 minutes in between turns. As long as a card isn't asking me to retroactively track something that's already been happening for the entire game, it's really not that big a deal. Anyway, yeah, fun little non-removal. Gem depth feels a little bit weird, especially since I don't think it actually needs to stay alive for the block to apply, but oh dear lord. Seeing all that I've seen, I think I can call it. I don't think there is a safe way to let Blue Mage go any higher in CA than neutral. Mox is the infinite tempo resource. Blood is much the same way so long as you can keep feeding it. There's just no reason you wouldn't hook it up to an ungodly engine that draws through your entire deck. At the same time, I recognize that having it draw only one card is really fucking lame. Having it scry and then draw is a bit more useful, a bit more of a toolbox. Maybe it would be more acceptable if it ended your turn or otherwise forced you to stop drawing, but it would break the simplicity of the Color Mage trio. I don't know. This card is garbage, as is. Glitter Glue is a theoretically interesting effect with a misleading sigil, but it's just too niche to be worth anything. For the investment you're putting into a Bedazzler, I really think you're better off just playing something else that works out of the box. Want a really tanky Mox to keep your Gem Ripper alive? Maybe try a Mox to it. Want to buff your Mantis God with an Orange Mage? Bite the bullet and drop a Alpha. If it had just one other gem synergy, or hell, apply its effect to everyone, then it would perhaps be runnable, but it's presently useless. That's not how we go here. Okay, here's the green cards. I didn't write a note here, but I could talk about how people have defined vague themes for green, like self-modification, body modification, scaling, things in that wake. I don't know. These guys are weird. Oh yeah, this is my reminder that you were trying to make the hot drink thruple a thing. T-Mage by herself isn't terrible, but she's forced movement with a unique timing. I really don't think there's that much synergy to speak of. There he is! Scales power only. Notably, you made it only stop if it has exactly 5 power. There's almost certainly an exploit in there, but I can't be arsed. Shield Latcher, but faster, and you get an O2 out of it. Nice and sensible design. This card honestly isn't even that unreasonable. Adder's crying. I'm in love with the idea of this thing, but god do I hate the execution. Can I see any of the sigil text, please? Does the main ability count as a sigil? Can it get a sigil more than once? Does that do anything meaningful? Find all the answers to these and more in the full release of Unscripted. Whenever that fucking happens. Rampager, sure. New art, why? You're rage baiting me. Also, I'm probably sleeping on this thing. Holy shit. Okay, see, this one kind of made sense as a prism. It had flavor, at least. This is fine. It does seem odd that green is getting so much of the good removal. Yeah. Now, for this, I do not forgive you. The ideal gem color to run in mono is green. This is a statement spoken only by the completely delusional. For as long as Blue Mage and Gem Feed so much as exist, with Party Magician in third place, it will never be true. If those two cards were the only blue gem costs in existence, blue would still be, at minimum, a very solid contender for the most viable monocolor. Maybe some of these other cards are cause to reevaluate their ranking, but nerfing Green Mage does nothing to encourage mono green. By your own admission, there's not even any other point to having more than one green gem out. Change it back. An obligatory mention of Gemified in the actual Mox Temple, with the bonus implication that tech cards are created by goblins. Lol. I don't think it's health now. Ew. You take an already bad card, and you make it worse. For what reason? This is acceptable. Approximately on par with Gem Fiend, plus some extra synergy potential. Maybe I should look into mono green. Gotta be the most redundant card I've ever seen, and I was just forced to see Muscle Mage versus Muscular Mage. All the arguments about Green Mage still apply. Fuck you. Oh, I could never hate you, Fabergé Frog. Here's the orange ones. Similarly, orange has been given vaguely defined themes of defense and having weaponry for some reason. Flooding field, those aren't themes, those are mechanical synergies. It is worth pointing out that gemification in Act 3 gives you health for green gems and power for orange gems, yet you seem to remain adamant that orange is the one about defense. I have no further thoughts about this. Let's just keep going. Solid and sensible with a flavor that actually kind of makes sense. Yeah, I fucking mentioned offhand the idea existed prior. Like, okay, there was fucking Gemsmith. Who gives a shit? Where are we? Oh, right. Right, yeah, so I remember the one where this was blue, and it was just and it was just an FTK in a can if you got 3 of them. Anyway, this one is still a fucking insane aggro tool because Skelemagnuses are huge, but at least it's like marginally more interesting. I don't know. Aha, this one killed me. Hand power in orange feels weird. I'm not sure what I would do with it instead. Maybe one of the weird options from the robot squid. That could be more interesting. He is without flaw. He is perfect. He is flaw. He is... What do you even do with this thing? It is the designated shit card. Fuck, I don't know. 05? Would that be something? Anything? I like the idea, but it might need a little bit of a better definition. 02 Orange Mage is nice. Now, okay. Maybe it's just my biased childhood knowing the Shattercost 1-2 version, but Mox Mage to me was always the epitome of what can be accomplished with a Shattercost. To have it be a regular gem and then just be a 1-1, I don't understand what you're meant to do with this thing. More gems for your gem, I guess. Now, I was just thinking about how I could potentially redesign Mox Mage, but how most of the options would end up being overly reliant on very specific synergies. And what do we have here? A card that does nothing until you can get specifically a leader, or I guess a fucking buff conduit, out. Why? Ah, yes, the other gem depth that no one cares about because health is irrelevant when you're dependent on a 1-health rock to survive. Give him something, man, even if it's more survivability. You can make it into a puzzle of you have to take out the gem, else these guys are immortal. I don't know. I don't know about this one. Seems like the kind of thing that only works with tokens or video games. I don't know. Okay, now to its credit, it doesn't do literally nothing without support, but it doesn't do much. I hate this guy. Can he just be tech again? Can we get over trying to make this weird alien guy work? And why does it make the gems repulsive instead of giving armor? You're fine doing that everywhere else. This guy also killed me because he's basically a shortcut to your Master Mox and nothing else. I guess there's no real harm in including him, considering he goes neutral guaranteed. If Blue Mage Nerf becomes real, he might rise up to take his place. This card sucks ass. I'm not going to be a pansy about it. It utterly fails at everything it claims to do. It has all the format problems of Price Right, made even worse by both gem depth and being... Made even worse by both by gem depth being overly situational and Defiler. Originally, I wrote that Defiler was not common enough to be memorable, but it turns out it's just not defined anywhere in the fucking game. So explain to me how the fuck this got past any kind of QA. Oh, that's right. You don't have any. And its effect is just far too niche to be consistent for anything. Vanilla cards, that is, ones with no abilities, are bad, generally. You don't need to print counters to bad cards. Also, she canonically doesn't even fuck. You put her in the goddamn cannon cuck chair. This was another idea that goes hard as fuck in theory, but in practice, I'm drawing blanks for things that it can actually do for me. Bone gen? Move things around pointlessly? Make skeletons die? Is it even supposed to work on both sides? It really doesn't need gemmed up. Right, I made separate categories for every one of the multicolors, so here we go. Here's Bleed. Soft is a really neat ability that gets... Oh, that's right, it's a 2-3. I've always wanted to find an excuse to use this card for a long time because it sounds really powerful, and maybe I should have done that by now. Who knows? Oh, look! Backup pulls for your Amalgam gimmick that are completely useless if they end up in your hand, and also useless in your deck because what Amalgam deck is running Mox? And here's Orlu. So now that I'm looking at it, there's probably some sauce here with Warlock and Skeletons and stuff. That is what I wrote before I actually tested the Warlock deck and found out that Warlock is just stronger by itself. It's not a bad card for 2 gems. It's nice. It is nice. So the thing with the Chime is neat, but a loose limb is actually really expensive space-wise in Mox, especially with it costing 2 colors. Oh, thank God the beast is dead. Here's Gorange. Now, this seems like the type of thing that's really funny if it works as intended, but it's inconsistent to get out, so I don't know. Funnily enough, this is still a theoretical OTK if you get it out with 2 fleeting conjurers. The nerf was very deserved, but I'm still not sure if it's enough. He's here. Free dog. Can't move as much because board space, but maybe that's okay. Book Shield. All 3 gems for an 0/1 that lets you hang around at -10 for a little while. Even if there were some kind of self-damage active, then this might be a combo with that. But even then, it is still prohibitively expensive. You need Unicorn and Mox module. So literally, what is the point of this thing? I will never understand it. Fun facts. I flat out forgot to include the blood costs here when I was originally writing this. But they sure are here. You know, the fancy cycle is Blood, Bones, Energy, Mox. So, you know, if each sub cost is just +1 in that, then Mox gets blood, which is hilarious. What did I actually write here? I don't care. Anyway, this is mildly cool if you have some kind of build where you want to kill off all of your gems, I guess. It could maybe work with Mountain Goat, but in that case you have access to all the actually good blood cards, so why would you run this thing? Another kind of disappointing combat trap, which I get because if it weren't, then it would just be another epically Blue Mage Repeater Tool 9000 side effect of getting to relocate. It has the side effect of kind of getting to relocate the host, and I guess being an armor layer in a weird way. If the opponent cooperates, else it doesn't do anything. Oh, yeah. Did I mention that the blood magics fucking suck compared to the beast blood stat lines? Because they do. Jesus, man. You didn't need to balance this like Virtual Realist was an actual ability. Flat 2/3 for 2 blood under curve already. Mountain Goat is fine. This fucker. Gymnastics was always the problem. But it's cute that you gave it something new, and I get how it wouldn't really hold up flavor-wise in beasts, but wow. Gutted. Also, Blue Mage is still just fully functional and fully broken, so what was even the point? Anyways, let's see if we have Blue Orange 2/2 Airborne Sprinter that everyone invents for some reason. We don't. I just wanted to make that joke. Is there an actual use for this? It's not in the Adaxio deck because you need all your rare slots. Why would I need all 3 gems when I have all 3 gems? Fun fact, you can't even play this off Mox Module because it's a gem tribe and Mox Module has Gem Skeptic. Please learn to use apostrophes. Please. Anyways, it seems that their top use is for getting full spectrum on a Blue Mage because nobody's going to be normal if the win button is right there. Do they need fundamentally changed? Hell if I know. They're main deck resource cards. He sure does do stuff with gems. Okay. So I double-checked the entire pool. There are 9 cards with the Construct tribe. 4 of them, that is Belemental, Ruby Golem, Mox Mage, and Practice Wizard, where was I? Are magic commons that only cost an orange gem. One of them, Puppet Mage, is a magic common that costs a green gem. There are a magic rare and a common that both cost an orange and a blue, and there are 2 beast commons that cost energy. So what the fuck is the strategy with this card? It has to be getting Frog or Burrowing Trap early, right? Or is it just a more consistent way to get an Iron Maiden out? Except it's not, because that's not how consistency works. It's also worth pointing out that 4 of these 9 are some form of removal. So I guess you're allowed to hammer the pilot, so maybe that's the idea. Maybe it's meant to be a toolbox for various removal constructs. Best hope you don't get them in your hand first. That's neat. This is a mistake, and you know it. What if Blue Mage was awesome? Honestly, though, items are probably inconsistent enough that it's not a serious danger. Probably. This is a 1/1. What do you mean while this card is on the field? One-time hand peek is cool, I guess. I don't know. I respect the choice to make this rare because the absolute finickiness of moving everything around is not something that should be repeated several times per game. This card... Sorry. Fuck. Right, anyways, this card is awesome, but admittedly kind of a meta nightmare because suddenly the exact phrasing of its effects matters in a way that it didn't before. You know, for everything else. Weird. And it seems like the type of thing that would absolutely pop off the moment green became runnable. Also bears mentioning how good it is as sack fodder, but 1 gem 2/3 is probably more valuable for itself than just as a squirrel, at least the first time. I don't know. My boy Brody is here! Oh wait, he uses a keyword search, huh? Interesting. Yeah, there's no amphibian tribe, huh? Well, you're playing with fire introducing that. It's manageable in this case, but I'd recommend avoiding it in general. Then again, numerator. And all the vessel cards, but again, vessels aren't real. You know, I used to think that this card would pull a target card directly into the opposing space in order for it to work. That would at least give its completely insane effect some semblance of balance, and Mox Max seemed to be an extra effort towards that, and it turns out that it's actually not the case. So fuck this card. There may have been a time when I would point out that this almost identically replicates the function of an Og card, which I shall not name, and I would be upset with you, but we are not in that time. In terms of flavor, this is just 1,000 times better, and in terms of balance, it absolutely deserves to be a rare, because fuck Blue Mage. My only gripe is the sigil text, as usual. But anymore, I'm taking for granted that all of your sigil grammar is just going to be ass. There he is! Part of me wants to think that Daniel was trying to designate Bleen as the centralized draw powerhouse and Blue Mage was just an accident. Maybe it was bad on purpose. Anyway, after I gut Blue Mage, maybe he'll get to shine. Also, you drew his hand backwards. It sure is a survivable burrower, but is that all it does? Are you meant to just leave it out for a while and do a bit of drawing and dry passing? I don't know. There she is. She sure is an airborne looter. I was going to say it's a Warning Nightmare, but I think actually this one does work as intended. This would be pretty good in Orlu Gem Debt builds. I guess this is also neat for the Gem Debt build. It gives consequences to killing Mox, but also just lets you do it yourself. Hell, is this the Mountain Goat build? So you know how I said kobolds need an extra power for the ability to be useful? This is a thing that explicitly synergizes with kobolds and doesn't do that. At least it's in the same color combo as Enchanter, I guess. It's just really underwhelming. I don't know. Now, with as expensive as this card already is to just get on the field, 2 gems and a rare slot, not to mention the Magic Temple, it should be offering a way better deal than 1 extra blood for +1/+1. This is useful for making a stupidly horrible Mantis card and absolutely nothing else. Double Gemmed Up is really funny. 6 power is probably unhealthy because hyper aggro. Chat, would triple Gemmed Up be funny? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah, weird to have the Spore one first. Anyway, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that 2/6 orange is underwhelming under the style of rare rules, but the Bifurc version I've seen sometimes might be a bit much. 3/6 is respectable. Oh boy. Necessarily the last of the 4 pieces, the legs of Adaxio are positioned like he's about to one guy one jar that little crystal ball. What's up with that? Anyways, Restraint is a fairly hefty cost on what's otherwise a free 2/2, so I don't see the card having much use outside its designated archetype. Maybe you could stick it in a buff con or something? If you're not using it for Adaxio, this is a green cost 05 green gem without the gem tribe. It's not great, and frankly the Adaxio usage seems too difficult to be viable. This is a 1 orange 2/2 with an orange gem, but no gem tribe. It's passable. This one is a blue 02 with a blue gem that also draws a card, and you can sacrifice it. It's great. You can use it as nothing more than an extra half of a Blue Mage, and that's fantastic for that. Adaxio win con be damned. The other use of the Adaxio pieces is for the Painter combo that makes you instantly win. Maybe I should ban that, but for now I still think it's really funny. Okay, time to see everyone's random shit-ass OCs. Sorry, that's a bit of dogging on Overhaul. Gooberts! Yeah, 1 power repulsive is fine, but 2 health is mildly annoying. Forgot about this motherfucker. Okay, 1 3-liter for an orange is actually crazy good considering all the important pieces I really wanted in orange and honestly just in general Mox, to be honest. Oh, fuck off, man. We have Abandonware right over there. It's one of those cards that's good in terms of being overcurved, but it doesn't do anything you can really capitalize on. Okay. Okay. You nerfed Green Mage so that you could pretend the color-agnostic gem power is some special, more powerful variant and give it to more flavorful recipients. It's really not, though. It really is not. It is technically scaling power on a single unit for relatively cheap, but the nature of gems means you're really not accomplishing much else with it for that board space. And I just think the majority of the time that's not a very good trade. Anyways. She just straight up a copy of whatever gets pulled from the discard. She's gonna be a Mox. She's going to be a Mox, Protozoan. I hate this ability text. I am left to presume it is describing cards with 0 base power, and namely terrains. But why can't she just get 1 power naturally? It's the same difference, and yes! And is an 0-3 gem animator really worth your talker slot? Amber solos both this and Artificer, and Lonely Mage solos the mushrooms. Jesus. Okay, one more. So I choose to believe that the ink visible on the back is an intended feature, so I'll take it into account. If the opponent can see it coming, they're going to hold on to the big complicated play until you're forced to spend it on something else. Oh, this motherfucker calls all 3 gems. Shh. This is never getting played. This is never getting played. And there you have it. That is every card in the legal set. Now we can say that, oh my god, there's items. Of course, I'm feigning surprise. I already know how this goes. You already saw this. But you see, unfortunately, God is punishing me for my hubris, and my work will never be finished. Also, I noticed a little bit ago that this is supposed to be a different color scheme. But whatever. I don't care. I'm committing now. So. Oh, come on. Right, anyways. So, in a nutshell, Acts 1 and 3 of the original game, the parts where you do all the fancy deck modding, have this extra little mechanic where these consumable items. In Act 1, you randomly draw them, and in Act 3, you have a set 3 that you can refresh every once in a while. PKCM and Grimoire Mod both have them work more like Act 1, and Magmod has a whole different thing going on, which is why there's not very many Magic-themed items. So let's go through them. That's where I was supposed to give that explanation. It's not just a boulder, it's a rock! It's an extra CA, and it's not like blockers never help, but it's mostly an underwhelming pull. So a lot of these I initially reviewed based on whether starting with them would just win you the game. I counted this as one, mostly just because of hyper aggro. See this? This is why I assumed Grand Astro had that limitation. It's cool at least, but god, is this a strong item. So you do have apostrophes! Anyway, yeah, aggro closer, maybe combat trap avoider, I don't know. Not relevant till bones are viable. Yeah, this just wins you the game. You also probably win the game with this one if you're a combo deck. An oddly sensible item in terms of balance. It fucks things up for everybody, so you might just leave yourself wide open to get fucked even harder. Also a nice and sensible tool for preserving a board. I imagine it must go great with conduits and probably also mocks. 2 damage makes sense for 10 scale. I might just admit this one. It's on par with Card in a Bottle, but it's just so complicated. Removal in a can. Extremely powerful, to no one's surprise. Even more removal in a can. Trades out the death trigger avoidance for an extra pelt. I kind of love this being here because it nerfs the item pool as a whole. It's okay for energy as PO3 claims, but for everyone else, it is the deadest of draws. Yeah, I had a gap when I wrote the script. So it's like aggro win. I don't know. I feel like the decks that can get use out of this would rather just actually play their cards. This definitely has uses. It's a nice item. Should I pause for the AirC? Right, where was I? Anyway, Bleach. Yeah, has uses. Nice item. Wise Clock! It's actually kind of toxic, honestly. It basically just blocks out the last lane. Okay, so that was all the items. We're doing every card. So, okay. Death cards, I'm not explaining. You lose, you die, you get inscribed. Smile for the camera. That's a pretty nice one. Cheap Salmon. I swear he was only 3 bones in the video game, but whatever. This one I can accept the buff on. Who is this guy? Interesting design. Could be an interesting build. I don't know. Frog. This is like everyone's first death card of a while, because, you know, you see Unkillable, you're like, oh, I gotta preserve my special baby. Anyways. Axolotl upgrade, which is cute, except I just remember we don't have Axolotl in this format, so that's interesting. There are more unkillable death cards than I realized. I guess it makes sense. This one costs a ton of bones. Hi, Pixel! Honestly, kind of brazy util here. I will admit, its flavor matches this segment from the Hex quite well. I get the Mighty Leap, although Hopper may have been better, but I don't get the Insta-Bomber. He only bombed that building once. I mean, come on. Very nice, very flavored. Kind of awkward as a 6 energy, but he sure does have guns. With an apostrophe and a trademark symbol. Feels appropriately evil. And once again, the flavor of Prism is lost, but alas. Anyway, we've got Bounty Hunters as a neat little alternative to the massive pile of extra blood and bone cards, and some of them are actually really funny. This guy exists. Holy mother of tempo swing. This one has a lot of random bullshit going on, and none of it really does anything interesting, so, you know, pretty accurate to how bounty hunters get generated. Okay, so in the video game, if you make a card with Guardian and Sentry, it just locks out the entire field because it just intercepts everything. So that's really funny. Pretty much the same as the Casey one, so yeah. Okay. Terrains are fun to see here, but most of them... Why is there a deck legal category? Like, okay. Why? Okay, well, okay. Wolf Pelts is a Pelts. You can put it in your deck if you want to proc Pelt Lice or something. It is whatever. You are better off just running Strange Frogs, unless maybe... Well, but no, per the rules, because it is a neutral card, you are allowed to just bullshit it up as a token. So what is the point of having this in your deck? This one, however, is another fucking mistake. Why did you mark this as legal? Why did you, after I pointed out that you made a free Explode bot, continue to put this one in the legal pile? Why do you have a legal terrain pile? For those uninformed, this card basically turns itself into a copy of either yours or your opponent's top deck. A 20-card deck size is already very small, as TCGs tend to go, and this thing turns that into a mere 17 effectively. So if we consider the worst possible scenario, you're playing Tech Blood and you will want to win. You get to pick 1 talker, 4 rares, and 15 commons. There are a couple viable options for talkers. You get 2 rares and both amoebas, because why would you not? 3 of your commons are going to be static glitch, because again, why would you not do the consistency? This gives you a whopping 15 cards to pick out. I respect wanting to have it represented in some form, but holy shit! Anyways. Lol. I have seen this one before. 4 HP is interesting, but respectable. Okay, see, this one was the free Explode bot. Whoa! Is that a slur? You're on some thin ice, buddy. Yeah, I remember these showing up. You know, this one forces me to acknowledge the neutral style they're trying to take on, despite many of these originating from Act 3, so it works pretty well, I guess. Stupid shiny gold card! Reminder text is nice, although I'm not sure what context it would actually be relevant in. This is an Act 1 card, right? Now, I'm pretty sure this one isn't actually from the game, so that's an interesting implementation. Yeah, these exist. Oh yeah, puppet ability! Toxic. Always struck me as odd that the boon only gave you the 3 health version, but whatever. Interesting implementation. I think I forgot that these are actually in pixels, but, you know, I'm wrapping my mind around how it could possibly be used competitively. You would want to have hand information for sure. Maybe the whole idea is just to reduce CA flat out. Hell if I know. Yeah. If I had a nickel for every Act 3 terrain you've reduced the HP on. 10. Interesting as fuck that you left its cost on here, but you didn't make it draftable. Yeah, team HP's draw step movement is interesting. So it's obviously a reflavor of the tail, but yeah, that's urgent asked for it, I checked. Okay. Telling that you left the cost on the tail and its reflavor, but didn't do the same for Leaping Trap. Actually, I'm not sure what that does. Why did you do that? There has to be some weird strat with this, right? Oil Jerry, maybe? Damn. I squint at the wording of valuable, but I'm not sure how else you would go about this, I guess. Pondering whether the unhammerable version from Overhaul would have been better. Say, do we even have rotting in here? I guess brittle would work the same. You know, next to the chimes, the fact that they don't do anything sticks out a little bit. Alright, now most of these kind of don't have any written game mechanics, but I did say I'd be reviewing every card, so we might as well commit to the bit. Here goes. Big ear. Hi, Casey! Hi, Hitler. Hi, Lou! Hi, the GameWorks building, GameFootnote building? I don't know, this one's not as funny. Ah, yes, the forbidden cost that you do not take. Ah, yes, 2 blood. Ah, yes, the cost you take if you're running the goat deck. Ah, yes. Boner. This trial was weird. It was either really easy or really hard. I don't know. This one was always the easiest trial to pass by far because, let's be honest, with Sacrifice Node, you're putting sigils on everything. This one was easy if your deck was good, and not ants, because those count as 0. I don't remember how hard this one was. Now this one, you were not passing this trial. This is hit or miss. This is just meta progression in a nutshell. This is a funny check to see if you spec into the annoying movement mechanic. Kinda the same. Kinda the same again. And this one exists for you to win it. Everyone wants rare cards. I can only assume this one is here to see if you decided not to cash in any leftover pelts. Oh, look, actual card. No. I remember when this was legal, and I remember my pure resigned devastation upon realizing that even with as powerful as it was somehow too slow to be worthwhile. Yeah, this one was a little redundant. Another really weird one with no clear purpose except being part of the royal fight, I guess. I would love to see a look that actually uses these. I might do that. I don't know. Who knows? Little guy. He's here! He's also here! Can you imagine there used to be an argument for this thing being a runnable card in main? Or did I hallucinate that? I don't know. Who knows? Lol. Yeah, I can see this being scary. This one really screams randomly generated tech card. Love it for that. Behold, actually synergistic abilities. Yeah, that's a unit. 4 energy is insane for this. I mean, this is just a mole. Why is it a mecha beast? Dr. Fire Esquire. Is that how he says it? I don't remember. Obviously terrible card to have legal, but I love its inclusion. I remember when these were in the tech pool. They really weren't that great. Then again, they probably shouldn't be side decks either, but honestly, maybe with 2 Temple and the ensuing essence of off-temple blood cards, it wouldn't even be that bad. Who knows? Same deal, but these would probably be a lot better as a Moxergy side. Also, the gems inside these look really cool. One to mention. Yeah? You do a cool sword? You, wanted to show it off here? Yeah? Oh shit, what the fuck happens if I...